Laura, happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Ree. How you doing?
I can't complain. I'm enjoying the journey. How about you?
I'm good. It's a short week. It's a holiday. It's like I'm excited. I'm ready for it.
I am too. It seems like this fall, from the start of, let's say, the dance season to now, has gone very fast.
Yes, I 100% agree. Faster than years in the past. I don't know why. I looked at the calendar. I was like, oh my God, it's almost December. I was like, I gotta get my act together. Like, I feel like it's really flying by this year for sure.
I'm in agreement on that. So, what'd you do over the weekend?
What did I do? So I know I ordered my first half of costumes back in October for all my company kids, and I just finished ordering all of my other costumes, all for all my recreational classes. And I actually just checked my email before we started, and it was like everything is being shipped already. I was like, oh my God, Weissman, hold off. I'm like, I'm not ready to get them yet. Keep them in your house.
Your boxers are going to fill your driveway.
Literally, I'm gonna come back I'm going up the mountains for Thanksgiving. I'm gonna come back and there's gonna be a line of boxes sitting in front of my garage. It's okay.
Yeah, better that though than April and no boxes. That's all I got to
Right.
say to everybody listening to.
That's right. How about you? How was your weekend?
This weekend, as everybody knows, I'm making a move. I'm moving here to North Carolina. Right now, I'm staying with a friend, but this weekend I bought furniture
That's exciting.
and went online and bought rugs and did things like that. But last weekend, I got to do a retreat in Florida. It was the first retreat in a long time. And I have to tell you, it was great to be back in that zone.
Oh, that's awesome. Was it a lot of Floridians that was there, or people like from everywhere in the country?
Everywhere in the country, there were only a couple of Floridians. It was interesting.
Wow.
They were from all over the country: California, Washington State, Northeast. And it was just a unique group. I kind of like it when they're from different parts of the country rather than all being from the same area because they bring different things to the table.
Yeah. And literally to the table. I remember going to your retreats and sitting at the table and being with people from like Massachusetts and Canada and California. And they'd be like, I do it this way, I do it that way. And just like even before learning from you or whoever was teaching, I was writing notes from people at my table. Like my dancing diapers program started at one of your retreats because someone was like, we just call ours dancing diapers. Take it. And I was like, what? She's like, take the name, call it dancing diapers. She's like, you're not in competition with me. And she was in like, I want to say northern Massachusetts or Vermont. And that's when I started my program. I called it Dancing Diapers, and it was like a hit. But you learn so much just sitting at the table with other people doing things in our industry that are not your neighbors. You learn so much.
I'm with you 100%. And I know this is going to sound strange because I'm the facilitator, but I'm a guy who learns so much every time. It's
That's
so
awesome.
interesting. I,
Yeah.
I go I go home smarter and better, more knowledgeable, more understanding, more empathetic. It's
Yeah.
cool. I love what I get the chance to do.
Well, I feel like too, I'm sure you probably see it, the different challenges that different parts of the country have, or the similar things that we're all going through as studio owners. And then I'm sure you can kind of reassess and bring different people to the table to help, like the Gold Alliance or help the Dance Teacher Alliance. Like you kind of can get like almost the temperature of our industry when you do things like that, I would assume. That you can kind of mimic.
Yeah, you do for sure. And there's an evolution going on right now in dance education. I guess I call it an evolution in the possibilities, whether it's programs for kids with learning differences, acrobatic arts certification, early childhood programs. There's this evolution happening of possibilities that we can be doing in our studios to to expand our offerings. And I've never seen the possibilities as big as they are right now.
That's awesome. Because I love, especially the children with disabilities. It's like, I think people maybe in the past have shied away from offering classes specifically for children and young adults with disabilities. And the joy I know firsthand, because we have a hip hop class for dancers with special needs. And that was the last class I ever wanted to hand off for anyone else to teach, because that class, that gave me, that was like that class reset my whole mindset every single week about dance. I can't put it into words. It was like, you're pushing your comm kids to do your triples, your quads, higher jetés, higher this, higher that. But like watching a dancer in that class do kickball changes across the floor for the first time and watching their other friends across the floor cheer for them. Oh, that was like, I could cry even thinking about that. When that comes up in my Facebook memories, and I share it every single year, I'm like, this is like one of my best teacher moments. Those teaching children and young adults like that. It's amazing. There's nothing like it. So I'm happy to hear the studios are doing it. I think it's amazing.
Oh, did we lose? Oh no, I thought you flashed for a minute there, my friend.
No,
so I want to say one thing that I think is important in this discussion that we just had. Mm-hmm. I, as a teacher in the early days, was fearful when it came to working with kids with special needs or learning differences that I wouldn't do a good job at it. Mm-hmm. So I can feel for those who may be afraid, but this is what I say. Go out and learn, because there's so many programs, so many offerings, that now it's time for us to expand our horizons and be confident in that classroom.
Yes. And it's also too, it's like, it's going to reach children in your classroom, your atypical classroom, your beginner jazz class. You might have a child with ADD or ADHD in your class, right? It gave me, the program that I did was RhythmWorks, and it gave me so many tools, and especially even now having a child with special needs, like how I approach Cole in certain situations is not how I would have approached him before the tools I got from RhythmWorks, for sure. And it helped my classrooms across the board. It's, I don't know, you just have more tools in your toolbox.
It's interesting that you should bring up RhythmWorks, because Trisha Gomez, who created the program, took me a minute. I got the Gomez in my head, but I didn't have the Trisha. She came to the retreat center one time, 2 or 3 times, and did her course. And after I watched her do it, I said, Trisha, do you realize that the focus of this is about working with special needs kids, learning differences, but the knowledge gained is going to be for every class that is taught? And I actually think you need to promote this program that way, that it isn't only, it's about learning. Some kids learn this way, some kids learn this way. It's so much more than just learning about working with kids who have differences.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I am excited. We have Francesco with us. Everybody's not going to know who Fran is, but when he comes on, they're all going to know who he is. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Give me a second and let me get myself ready. We will be back right after this with Francisco Gella.
I don't mind if the world spins faster, the music's louder, the waves are getting stronger. I don't mind if the world spins faster, 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 faster. Just let me take you to a better place. I'm gonna make you kiss the sky tonight. Let me show the way.
Welcome, Fran.
Good morning. How's it going?
I can't complain. I'm so excited to have you with us.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for asking me to be part of this. I'm really excited.
So I wanted to say that I went through your bio this weekend, and one of the things I found a few things fascinating, but you didn't start till you were 19. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yes. So when everybody says, that, oh, I can't do this, I started when I was 16 or when I was like 12, I say to them, you're way ahead of me because it started when I was in college. In fact, I didn't even know that there was an entire dance studio and competitive world out there until I started dancing, in college. And I figured, I needed to, it was so accelerated. And I knew there was a dance studio down the street from the University of Washington, which is where I first started dancing. And then I ended up going and signing up for a level that was so below me. I mean, I was with the little kids because I needed to know what first position was. I needed to know what second position was. So like I was with the little tiny, not minis basically. And I was just going in there and taking class to get caught up. But I was a gymnast, a competitive gymnast for 8 years. And so that really helped with accelerating my training. And I was able to already come in and do all these different things. And all I needed to do, well, it was a difficult process, was change my body from being an athletic, more muscular and power into something more lengthened. So it was a really, really challenging process. But I mean, I fell in love with it. I saw one dance concert and that was it. I was like, I have to do this. So
You saw the dance concert before you walked into the studio?
So I went and I took a differential equations class, which is calculus backwards, right, for my engineering major. And I was like, what am I doing here?
Okay.
What am I doing here?
You have brains. You have brains.
So I was like, what am I doing here? And I'm like, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. So I dropped the class and I was talking to my mom and she was like, just go and take an elective. So I took an art 101 class and a dance 101 class the spring quarter of my freshman year. And I saw the concert. I'm like, this is so fun. But when I saw the concert, I mean, it's like one of those moments where it just hit me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I wrote a paper about it and I was like, I have to do this. I mean, the power that those dancers had and the memory of that moment was so emotional. I could still vividly remember it and recall it. It was the moment that I knew that I had to do this. So that was it. I dropped my aerospace engineering major. My dad, of course, was not very happy about that.
Right.
But I ended up, 4 years after I started training, I ended up getting a job. Actually, 2 years after I started training, I ended up getting a job in Seattle with the Seattle Opera. And then I started freelancing. And then when I graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in dance and a minor in psychology, I ended up going to New York and audition. And that's where I ended up getting my first job with a company in Salt Lake City called Preprofessional Dance Theatre. So they're still in existence. And I think they're like 65 years old or something, or 50 something years old. I don't remember, but they're still in existence. In fact, I went to choreograph for that company back in 2016. So that was a little bit of a homecoming for me.
Wow.
I feel like that's like such an inspirational story. It's like kind of reminds me of like a Misty Copeland kind of vibe. That's the first person that popped into my head. It's like when you start an art form, I feel like this, like dance, and then you have the professional career that you've had, like this is what you were meant to do. Whether you're meant to do it at 2 or starting at 8 or starting at 19, like this just proves like this is what you were supposed to do, in my opinion. Because I feel like 2 years into training and you're already dancing professionally, I mean, like that speaks for itself. Like we're in such a cutthroat, amazing talent,
I gotta tell you, it's so crazy. Like in the 2 years, there were still things I couldn't do. I couldn't do brise volet. It was like I was still learning how to turn correctly. Like I had a hard because everything in gymnastics was parallel. So I was still trying to find my turnout. And then when they hired me, I actually went to the audition and my first audition was Seattle Opera. I made it to the last cut. And I was like, wait, like, I'm like, I was surprised, but then they didn't hire me but the choreographer ended up loving me because when I come back next season, I'm going to hire you. You don't have to audition. But I ended up getting into the final cut for the opera Hansel and Gretel. So back then I couldn't be Hansel. So they go, the only reason why I'm not hiring you is that the opera is Hansel and Gretel. I'm like, okay. But then we ended up having a relationship, and then she ended up hiring me for the seasons that they needed me. So it was really, really amazing. Yeah.
That's incredible.
So it says that you moved to the United States as a teenager. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I moved to the United States when I was 11 years old. We arrived here like on March 5th, 1984, legally. Okay. And it was really, really incredible because also it was the Olympics. It was like, I mean, we were in Mission Viejo, California, is where our house was, and the Olympics was just up the street. I had no idea that it was happening. And so Mary Lou Retton and all that, Peter Vidmar, Bart Connor, I saw all of that. And I was like, it's just down the street. I mean, it was so inspirational. That's actually what got me into gymnastics, was that moment. And we moved here. Actually, they told me that we were on vacation. So I was like,
wait.
like
Your
our
parents
system,
told you this?
yeah, that we were on vacation. So I went and saw like Return of the Jedi at the time, and it didn't even like everything that came to the Philippines was like always a year later. So when I saw it, I was like calling my friends, telegramming them, oh my gosh, I have all these toys, I can't wait to show them to you, whatever, when I come back. And so our school season starts in June in the Philippines. And I remember like, okay, it's May 15th now. Like, why is nobody packing? What's going on? And like, okay. And like, oh no, we're gonna stay for a little bit longer because we want to try to get it together. And back then I did not know, but the Philippines was going through a revolution. Like, I mean, like meaning that people were trying to overthrow the authoritarian
I
regime.
remember this actually.
Yes. So they wouldn't let me go back because it was not safe. And then the next thing you know, it was like, okay, we're just gonna enroll you in the elementary school down the street. Like boom, like at the end of the street, La Tierra Elementary is what it was called. I remember going in there. I'm like, what is happening? It was co-ed. I went to an all-boys Catholic high school. I did not know what was going on. It was just so insane. So that's how I moved over here. So yeah, they told me that it was on vacation, and then I just stayed, and I loved it. So there you go.
I love that. And I think it was Marcos.
Yes, it was Marcos. It was Marcos, which ironically, the son is now the president of the country, which I thought was really interesting. But let me tell you, when they told me that I wanted to move here, like we were like, oh, more Disneyland trips. Like that's all I could think about was going to the mall and going to the Gap. Like that was a thing, going to Orange Julius, Dairy Queen, and the food court in the mall. We didn't have any of that back then. So for me, it was like more of that stuff. I mean, I remember like what Toys R Us, that was like that was heaven for me because we didn't have Toys R Us back in the Philippines. And to walk into this whole like megaplex, and it's just all toys. I mean, I would be in there for hours. They would have to drag me out of the Lego section, and I would be crying. So that was my childhood. Just a little bit.
It sounds like a great one.
Yeah, for real.
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun. Lots of challenging things. I mean, I had to learn idiomatic expressions for English, obviously. But, as you learn, because my English was so formal, but you learn through the sayings. Like, I remember like, oh, rad, dude. Like, what's rad? Is that the color red? No, it was rad. Or chillin'. I was like, what is chillin'? Like, I'm not cold. Like, you're chillin'. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're just chillin'. And with this thing, like, I'm like, what is California, right? Southern California, chillin'. Like, it's the sun is out. I was literally sweating. How are you chillin'? You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, it's not that you're cold. You're just kind of like, chilling. You're kind of relaxing or whatever. So I had to learn those things because I literally took the sayings literally. Like,
right.
And so it was, yeah.
Well,
that
can
was
I
fun.
That reminds me of my senior girls. A couple weeks ago, one of them called me sus, and I was like,
Oh,
I don't know what that means.
I have no idea what that is
And
either.
I'm like,
So,
go get water. I like Googled it. I'm like, what does sus mean? I was like, you're old when you like are not down with the lingo
oh
anymore.
yeah. Or you know what's so funny is when you know, like for me, like talk about like feeling old when a particular fashion trend has now gone through and
Yeah.
you've seen it now 3 times, not one time. Like the 70s is back there, and then the cool out pant. I'm like, wait, was already back in the 90s. Now it's here again, and I'm like, I am old. When I'm seeing fashion trends that I've now recycled 2 or 3 times in my lifetime, then I know I'm like, oh, I'm really getting up there. Wow.
Wait, it gets worse. And you feel bad because you threw out all those clothes just
Yes.
about a year before they came back.
Yes. And
I'm
you
like,
like vintage, like these New Balance and Adidas shoes. I'm like, I had those. Like, why did he not keep them? The Reebok shoes, the high tops.
yep.
I remember like that was a big thing. Like, that's what I wanted. It was like these high top Reebok, the ones that go with the Velcro. I wanted the white ones. I remember my dad got them for Christmas. And I was like, oh, I mean, I wore those things everywhere because that was a thing back then. So,
Mhm.
So after like committing to dance, what would you say were some of the milestones along the way?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I mean, I think going into, oh gosh, where do I start? I mean, like highlights definitely were dancing for the companies I danced with, like Repertory Dance Theater, Philadelphia Dance Company, which is mostly a predominantly Black dance company. And
Mhm.
I was one of like the first Filipino in there. And then to be able to do the rep of these Black choreographers, and then it was bestowed upon me by Joan Myers Brown. She's won the Humanities and Arts Medal twice now, one from Obama and one from President Biden for her International Association for Blacks in Dance. And
Mhm.
to be able to have those roles, under and or roles created on me is amazing. I went and danced for Ballet Pacifica and then worked with Jody Gates. And then uh, my first milestone, my first choreographic official commission for a ballet company was at California Ballet, and Maxine Mahan, from California Ballet, a legend. She ended up asking me to do something for her 35th gala. And so I did it. It was my first time choreographing with a live orchestra, with a conductor. I was like, I didn't even know how to read sheet music. I mean, but he was like, I chose his 6-part Vivaldi anyway. So there's all that. And then after that, like when I was in Repertory Dance Theater, it was during the time that Salt Lake City was getting the torch from Nagano, Japan, because they were about to host the Olympics. So I went to Nagano, Japan, and performed at the closing ceremonies at the Olympics, and that was a highlight for me. It was incredible. And then afterwards, like I mean, besides all these different things, like I think owning a studio was a highlight, although I did close it. It was a highlight. I ended up gosh, there's so many things. I'm just trying to go through like the timeline. And then getting into convention, what I mean, was a highlight for me because I didn't think that I was going to end up um doing that, being more on the artistic side of dance. I didn't realize back then when I got the job in 2012, I had no idea that it was going to be the foundation for the business that I built
Yeah.
later. But there's so many things. I was like named like the 100 Filipinos or whatever like that in Los Angeles. I ended up like being recognized for that. Um, but there's so many things along the way that I could name from that side of it. So more on the concert dance part. Choreographically, I mean, like, when I got to choreograph for the companies that I danced for, Repertory Dance Theater, I've already done 2 pieces for Philadelphia Dance Company, and just basically going all over the place, teaching choreographing for studios, conservatories, modern companies, ballet companies, and then my own company. So the other
Mhm.
highlight is my own company, Zeitgeist Dance Theatre. It started during the pandemic, and that's been going on since 2020. And the city of Santa Fe is now they're recognizing us as an entity there. And so we're developing these relationships and building this company in a city that is the third largest art market in the world, but they have no professional dance company now. So we're trying to figure out how to be able to do that. And we are making some good attraction to be able to make that happen. So I'm really, really excited.
Oh, that's amazing.
How'd you land in Santa Fe?
Well, that was my husband's idea. We
Okay.
lived in LA. We still own our loft in downtown Los Angeles. And he's like, I'm tired of the traffic. So I'm like, okay, so where are we going? So we tried to go to Scottsdale, Arizona. At one point, we were thinking about like Heber, Utah, Colorado. So he actually went there a while back. So when he kind of like when we got married and it was for like our first year anniversary, we ended up going to explore, like the city. I'm like, Albuquerque. I'm like, I can't do this. This is too much. I can't. This is like dry. It's not really my scene. Then we went up to Santa Fe. I fell in love with the magic of the city itself because it feels like a time warp from the past. It's like the oldest capital in the United States. It's been around for 400 years. And I ended up getting this, purchasing a loft. Actually, I was teaching somewhere, and Jeffrey said, "Okay, I'm gonna fly to Santa Fe, find some loft." He sent me a picture of the loft space that we are living in now, and I started crying. I'm like, "That's it. Put an offer." It was smooth sailing. In fact, we put an offer. It was less than other offers, but we wrote the owners about what I did, and they went for our offer and ended up getting it our first, so it was incredible. So it was meant to be. But what that did for me was I saved the 5 hours a day I was on the road in Los Angeles. And so they told me, "You're moving where?" Like, "Oh, your dance career is gonna be done, you're teaching, all that." Well, guess what? When I moved out of LA into Santa Fe because I had that additional time to focus on myself and my business, our business clientele quadrupled.
I'm sure.
So it was meant to be. And so now I travel, like I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. I've been here for the last 2 weeks, studying again at Arts Umbrella and then choreographing for a studio here for the last 9 days. And when I go back home, I get to reset because I don't have to drive in traffic. I don't have the big city craziness. I get to go back and have all that time to myself to reflect, to be able to think about what just happened, and to be able to reset before I go into my next gig. So I'm really, really happy that we're there.
And
Yeah.
I would think become re-inspired too. I
Yes, the
find,
landscape.
yeah, the older that I get, like my parents live in the Poconos, in Pennsylvania, and literally any chance I get, I run up there. I just like
Yes.
walking up there, being in nature, and I feel like, and this might not be for everybody, but for me, like when I come back from my happy place, my choreography is so much better. It's so
Yeah.
much.
And you talked about the learning and always being a student. Well, that's what I did. Like, I'm at a point in my career where I feel like, I'm tired of being in the front of the room. I
Mm,
need to be a student again. And so by going to this place here called Arts Umbrella, I was able to be a student again and to reconnect that. And like for me, it was important for me to do that. So this year, for instance, I'm focusing on re-inspiring myself as an educator. So I went to this program for a week. I'm going to go to Berlin to study for a week to see what's going on in the European uh, 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 market and genre, and also just what's happening there in terms of concert dance techniques, because there's different things in contemporary now that are being infused that we're receiving here in the US. So I want to go back over there. So for me, I just needed to be a student. So this year I'm focusing and investing on myself to take the time to see my art and my methodology in a different way. So, I admitted to myself, I'm tired of my stuff. And you're like, well, you teach people how to teach. You teach people how to choreograph. You teach them how to do all this. So like, why can't you just teach yourself? Like, no, I can't do that. I need to be told what to do.
yeah.
And I need, you know what I mean? Like, I need to be as soon as I became a student, even like the switch is flipped and my whole way of thinking
Yeah.
really helped me now. Like I'm inspired again to
Mhm.
reconnect with my educator self. And it also put me in my body, it put me in my dancing self again. And I was able to just do what I needed to do for myself, obviously, because I'm older than 51 years old. So I can't like do what I used to do. I could still do a lot, but it was really incredible to reconnect with my instrument and to understand how these concepts now help sustain me, but also how is that going to further me as an educator, and how can I communicate that clearly with the people that I'll be teaching and I'll be educating in the future. So it was a really incredible reset. So the first stop this year, and I'm looking forward to more.
That's awesome. I feel like in the dance world, we wear a lot of different hats. Like you can wear the teacher hat, the business owner hat, the choreographer hat, the dancer hat. But I feel like sometimes if you wear one hat too long, your bucket
Oh
starts
yeah.
a little low, right? So I feel like I'm the same. I actually started, there's an adult studio that opened up in New Jersey, and it's an hour drive from me, but to me, it's worth it. I love going over there and just taking class. But again, it's like when I get back into my classes on my Monday nights, I'm like, I liked how she did isolations like this. I like how she did this across the floor. I like how, and it re-inspires you. Yes, I was a student when I was there, but you can't help but say, I want to use that in my class too. I
Yeah.
like that felt on my body. I'm going to bring that to my kids, it's and it makes you a better teacher the more that you're
Yeah.
continuing education. It really does.
I think that I'm sustaining myself because I always want to feel like I've learned, like I know that once you think you know everything, it's over. Like I have to be my teachable self. I have to be willing to look at what's not effective. And I'm never too proud to admit that. Like I was telling my students, I'm gonna go back and study. Like, I'm older, but I'm not too proud to admit that I'm tired of my own material. Like I need a reset. I need to. And I say that to them, like, why are you tired of your own material? Like, you're still inspiring, as I said, but that's not the point. The point is that I think what I'm trying to say is that never be too proud or think that you can't have a teachable moment. Because for me, some of the best lessons were learned in the classroom by my students. Like whenever I tell my students, you know what, you've taught me something and you have no idea what you've done, but you've taught me a moment and you made me learn something about myself that I could do better. And for me, these are the moments. And I tell the students that you just gave me a teachable moment. Thank you for that. Because I don't think that they understand that how, like when I walk into a convention or teach in a class, you know, I'm not just a teacher. I'm also watching carefully about what's happening in the room. And then I am not too proud to say to a student, thank you for that. Thank you for allowing me to see that. Or thank you for allowing me to see my work in a different light because of the way you're committing to it 110%. It's the greatest gift that a teacher can give, that the student can give to a teacher when they are taking your material and they allow for you to see your own work in a different light because you're so committed to what they're doing. And I think it's the greatest gift for me when I see that. Also because they're so into it, number one, and number two, the fact that they trust me and that they're committing 110%, and then they get that back in the way they execute those movements or my signature movement. Or I always tell them, when I come into a place, I wear this all over my body. So I'm giving all this to you. So all I ask for you to do is, you don't have to be the best in my class. Just be a great student. Just commit to it because, we're putting our hearts out there and we're also sensitive human beings. So this should be an exchange. I should not be just ordering you and telling you what to do. It's an interaction that not only inspires them, but it should also be received back. So this is constant flow of information, but also conscientious exchange that elevates both sides of the room, the person teaching and then also the student that's there. So for me, I always approach class that way. And there have been many times where I get teary-eyed watching a moment because, the students are just so committed to that voice. But I also tell them, when I said a work, whether it's for a company or a competitor, I said, I am giving you all of this. This is my heart. Please commit to this moment and don't break my heart. And it's not to make them feel bad. It's for them to understand, that I am giving all of myself and I'm trusting my artistic identity and soul in your hands. And I want you to understand this responsibility is not to be taken lightly because I am a living human being and I'm giving all of my energy and my soul to you. So please nurture it. And then by giving them that opportunity and allowing them to see the importance of that, not even about the choreography, not even about the work, not even about whether it wins or not. They just look at it differently and they commit to it in a different way. So it's been the honor of my life that I'm able to do this. Like that moment where I became a dancer, that was the moment that brought me to this place. And every single time over the last 3 decades, it's just maybe I just constantly fall in love with it, and the love goes deeper and deeper. And I realize that this is my destiny, that I was put on this earth to do this. So,
Wow. You're Okay, so I'm going to go somewhere with you. You came to my attention, not necessarily because of your teaching, though now I've explored it. I think what you do is awesome. You came to my attention because of your inspiring posts on social media, your opinions about what great dance is all about. What inspired you to go for speaking out? And
You know, those quotes are little tidbits of what I'm going through in that moment of my day or week or process. It is an authentic representation of what I'm going through. And I just started doing it and putting it out. And all of a sudden I get these people are like, oh my gosh, I felt that. Oh my gosh, you know what? I'm not even a dancer, but that completely applies to my work in the office. So I ended up getting an overwhelming response to just me sharing my thoughts and perspectives on how things are going for myself, but also how I feel, what is challenging, and recognize the challenges of whatever it is I'm feeling during that week. I think, social media, I feel like, is a tricky thing, but I try to be as authentic as possible in my social media. Like, those quotes also are representative of what I'm struggling through for that week. And even if I'm either posting them because I realize that that's what happened, or I'm posting them because I'm struggling with this particular thing. And when I do that, the dance community responds in a way where, wow, so I'm not the only person feeling this. There are other people that are feeling this too. And then it just became this thing like, you know what? It's not even about getting the likes or getting the engagement. It was more about, let me just put it out there and let's see what happens. And so these quotes are just reminders to anybody, students, teachers, of what I'm going through in that moment. And I'm not trying to preach anything. I'm just sharing authentically what I'm going through in that particular period of time. It's a snapshot of my emotional and artistic soul during that time. And it could be coming from a creative standpoint, a creator standpoint, an educator standpoint, or just coming from me as a human, non-dancer, and I say, consider this, or, you know, what's really important? Is it about, the competitiveness of it, which I don't like that when it's all about the competition. I always tell people, look, I'm about this. I'm using dance as a way to empower and inspire human beings. So I always say this all the time: person first, dancer second.
Mhm.
Because if the person isn't developed, how is that dancer going to survive rejection or not understanding who they are? And I always tell, my students, and anybody that I come up with, you have to be your authentic self. Don't try to make me see what you think I might like. I want to see it all. And in fact, the flaws, or what you deem are flaws, are what's interesting for me, because that is where the struggle is. And that's how I'm going to be able to get to know how you deal with your struggles. Do you let it define you? Or do you overcome them? And there's no judgment in either one. I'm just interested in that because it makes me understand you. I feel like the part where people are afraid to fail is where I feel a person's most authentic self is where it's at. And so I try to meet him in that place and try to make them look and flip the script. Like I had one kid, for instance, like, I'm just so scared that I'm going to mess up and not pick up. They kept saying that to me because I'm like, well, first and foremost, it's okay if you mess up. It's okay. Just keep trying. And second, instead of worrying about messing up, instead of being so worried about getting it wrong, can you just worry about it? Can you focus more on getting it right? Just like that, you know what I mean? And
Right.
focus on, look at the movement. Don't look at the mess up. Look at the movement. Look at it, how it feels in your body. How does it, maybe you do it through the music. Maybe you do it following and standing next to a person who's really good. You could follow them, giving them strategies to believe in themselves more, because I think most students feel like they have to, they're so scared. And I say to
Mm.
them, mess up all you want, please. Because I don't really care about you getting it right. I just care about you not quitting yourself and continue to participate, because the continued participation ensures that they're engaged. But then at the moment that they get it towards the end of class and you see their eyes light up, that's the moment where I'm like, huh, good for you. Yay.
Mhm. Yep.
Like, and then they're like, thank you so much. But they have to believe in themselves, even if
Yeah.
it's not all the time, but for that moment. I mean, that's what makes me tick. I understand what that feels like. I was bullied when I was younger. So when all it took was for people to say to me, I see you and I believe in you in this space. And that was more than enough for me to keep going. So
Mm.
try to give that
That
back.
I feel like that brings me back to like it's so much more than just dance, right? Like what
Mhm.
was so much more than just teaching tendus and plies and kickball changes. It's like
Mhm.
you're teaching the future leaders of whatever industry or world, like that it's okay to mess up. It's
Mhm.
okay to learn. It's okay to grow. It's okay to do it scared. Like you just got to keep going. And I feel like that's to me is like why you put your children in activities. That's to me is why you put your children in dance, not for them to become the best and the most professional. That would be incredible, right? But to me, it's like having them become full people and
Mhm.
being able to stand in front of a crowd and give a speech or stand in front of a crowd and do a solo or whatever it is. Like dance helps everybody and do those things. It's a tool that they can use in all other aspects of their lives. I truly believe that.
Well, the other thing too, like as I sometimes, when I go into a convention setting, like it's such a funny thing because I come from the concert artistic dance world and it's a different situation altogether. But sometimes I will also admit to students, hey, listen, I'm a little nervous today. Like it's because I have a
Mm,
new combo to teach. But like I think let's try it out. I need your help. I need for you to engage with me to see what works and what doesn't. But I also tell them I still get nervous. I've been doing this for 12 years. I still get nervous because I don't know, but when they hear that, it changes the entire energy of the room because then we're like, wait, somebody that we look up to is on that stage is also nervous like us. And then it humanizes you. And
that's
then
just
something
it's
is very
really
different with the
mm,
exchange because you're not just,
yep,
the big person. And you make them recognize that you are them and they are you. And for
yeah.
me, that changes the whole setting of the whole entire a room with 400 teenagers or whatever, right? They end up trying more. And for me, it's like that. Just keep trying. Being 19 and starting dance and didn't know anything, I always tell them, you know way more than I do. I started and didn't do any of this stuff. I didn't even know what first position was. And I would show them what I used to look like with my legs and everything like that. My fit was like so horrible. It was like this, it wasn't even like tight. And then I said, so like when you feel bad about the fact that you think that you're not doing good, like you're way ahead of me, first and foremost. So kudos to you. But second, it's not about, feeling self-conscious about what other people think of you. I said, don't make it about them.
Yeah.
Make it about your learning and not making it about what they might think of you because, there's some really good dancers. Like they're focused on themselves. So they don't have time to even think about what other people are doing. So, I always remind them, go back into yourself, go back into your learning and constantly remind them that it's their journey and everybody's journey is different. So it's been really, really as I get older, it's become about being authentic and just being honest, with where I'm coming from,
The sense that I'm getting from you is that your classes are very conversational rather
Yes.
than lecture-esque, which I'm sure is a big reason why they're very well received. Because I feel like a lot of kids with schools, I'm sure it's very lecture-esque. Here are the rules, this is
Yes.
what you're doing, do your homework, like it's so I'm sure for them to get into an environment where it's more of an open conversation and they
Yes.
feel maybe a little bit more free to express themselves, whether
Mhm.
it's in whatever way in their jazz class or ballet class, I think it makes a huge difference in how they show up for themselves and show up for us as teachers.
Agreed. Agreed. Yes.
I would love a little advice for teachers who are either watching today or on demand when this goes up, who are a little bit afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to let down that authority that they feel they need to have, maybe in the front of the classroom. What do you say to those people? Because I feel like in today's world, 2024, what you described is how young people need to learn, but it's hard for
Mhm.
the educator to adjust. What are your thoughts?
You know, I think it's important to set your expectations in the beginning of class. Like, these are the rules, and these are the things that you can and cannot do. And then from there, build upon that conversation and trust with the students. I think recognizing the student where they're at, they don't they, it's like it's just tricky kind of balancing act. Like, when you tell a student and you're telling them to do something and they resist because for whatever reason, but recognizing, oh, okay, can I talk to you for a second on the side? I know you're nervous. I think taking a student to the side and talking to them about or recognizing the energy of the room. Like, for me, it's all about reading the room where it's at. There are some rooms where, like, for instance, in my mini classes, I teach ballet at this convention, and I sit them down before we start class. I tell them, listen, you don't have to be great in ballet to do well in my class. All you have to be is a great student. And a great student, what does a great student do? I go, they listen and they pay attention. And what should they be doing on the side instead of doing acro? They should be what to get better? They're like, oh, and it's like we should be practicing. And so I run my classes where they understand the rules. And then all I have to do is say, okay. And then sometimes when some kid gets in trouble or whatever, I say, you shouldn't be talking. But then when you do something wrong, I'm like, great job. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. That's why you pay attention. So I think a lot of positive reinforcement, but within the confines of the rules that you want to set for class. I think it's okay to have these rules in place and to abide by them, but you have to also allow for them to see your humanity. I think also recognizing the students where they're at and saying, where are you today? Sometimes even instead of just going to class, like, can we sit down for a second? Okay, how are you all feeling today? I know I'm not normally like this, or whatever, but I think just having a conversation and building that rapport with them, but then within the confines of the rules in your class, like, don't talk, let's work hard or whatever. Or for me, it's just, that's what it is. It's an exchange and a conversation that you have with the student that's most important. I think by doing that, it kind of allows for them to be more open with you, and then they listen differently and they try harder. It's a more complicated issue. For me, it's so hard because it's like I just read a room and I respond to however what the energy is, and then plan my interaction with them depending on what it is. The way they respond to me in Alabama is very different from the way they respond to me in Seattle. So, like, I have to be very careful about what I say in certain places. And there's certain places where, like in Seattle, like, they have a hard time like expressing because it's always raining and they're in their hoodies and they're always hiding from the sun. So I tell them, it's a different focus. In LA, I tell them it doesn't have to be so showy. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
about it's about the goods, the foundation. When I go to Alabama, I said, I need for you to focus more on your muscles. It's not just about the lines of your bones. There has to be, internal um, um, muscular activation. So every single part of the country has a different situation. Here in Canada, their contemporary is off the charts. And they always tell me, like, how do Americans, why are they so like out there? They're just like so confident. And I tell them, they're not all confident, but they know how to work it, don't they? And go, so, well, that's what we need to do. So when I come to Canada, like, that's the first thing that we do is like, stop being so nice. I love that you're nice, but you need to push yourself and be
you
assertive.
need
You
to
can
have that
still be
side.
humble. You could be humble and be nice, but be assertive. There is
Yeah.
such a thing where you can do both.
Yep.
So depending on where I go, it is how I design the way I interact with students and how I design and I interact with classes. Because in different parts of the country, there are different issues and cultural differences that you have to adjust to. So it's a privilege, and I'm fortunate to see that. But at the same time, it's also really challenging, and that's why I'm always continuously learning.
And what a beautiful life. You get to travel and reach all these different kids and companies. Like, how incredible. Like, I love
Well,
I love my home base. I love that I have my studio, I have my kids that I see, but on the other spectrum, like, I think it just goes back to the dance world has so many avenues. Like, when
oh,
people are
so
like,
many.
make it in the dance world? I'm like, you can. You just have to know. It's like there's the tree and it has all of these like different like roots going all different ways. And you can go any different way in the dance world. You can be a professional dancer, you can be a teacher, you can be a choreographer, you can be convention, you can be like a showgirl, you can be Broadway, you can be like there's so many different things. Prop design, like there's so many things that you can do.
So many things, makeup, stage, you know, so
Yeah,
many rehearsal
yeah.
director, you know, like so it's interesting. So I do it all a little bit. So I had just choreographed a brand new story ballet called Daisy Hill for Ohio Contemporary Ballet. I was there for like 2 weeks creating this work. And then straight from there I went to convention, right? So I had just been for 2 weeks spoiled by all these beautiful ballerinas and all these dancers that can do everything. And I walk into convention, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like 300 8 to 10-year-olds that can't do. It was like a reality check, or I'm teaching the sidekicks, which are 47-year-olds, like, you know, so I went from professional company all the way down to 47-year-olds, and I'm like, yay, like going from like, you know, being this choreographer and director to being yay, you know, like, so I do a little bit of all of it and I love it all. And believe it or not, the 47-year-olds, because of that class, I feel like that class has taught me to be the best possible educator, because with little kids, you know, you have to know how to communicate with them, you know, and I'm like a little kid too. I'm like a big kid. So when I go there, I'm like, yeah, you know, I you know, but you can't demand from them the same thing that I would demand from Ohio Contemporary Ballet, right? It's like a different situation altogether, because first and foremost, it's a ballet company. And then I went from there into the weekend for convention. And I remember like, oh my gosh, I feel so schizophrenic. I'm like, where am I right now? You know, and then you realize, wait, I know how to do this. And then, you know, it's cool.
Okay, here's something I want to say, and it's a compliment to you. Do you know how many people would not go from working with that ballet company to working with those 4-year-olds and think they're above that and better than that? You know they exist, though.
They do. A lot of my colleagues are like that. They will not. And I'm like, you are really missing out, because there are some phenomenal teenagers, 15 to 18-year-olds, that will dance like circles around the professional dancers in companies, because they are willing, they're so hungry. In fact, when I go to a company, I actually am more attracted to the apprentices, the lower level company members, because they're so hungry. Because the principal dancers are like, I'm not going down on my knee. I'm not going to the floor. I'm sorry. I'm like, are you serious? There's a guy holding you up. There's a guy holding you up. You can go down to the floor. I'm like, let me show you. It's my job. But I will get that sometimes. And sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to argue. It's going to be a losing battle. So let me go ahead and adjust. But I feel like, yeah. So, okay. Ballet BC, a company here that is world renowned. There are 9 dancers that I taught in that company that are in the company currently that are from convention. So, you know, like people in the ballet world don't understand that these convention kids or these kids from comp studios are now dancing and proliferated, and they're now manning these. I mean, every single company that I know of, even ABT has 2 of them, you know, like they're former competitive dancers that are now in the company. They're all over. They're at Ballet Rambert, they're at the Zurich Ballet, all comp kids. And yet that world refuses to acknowledge the studio system. But you know what, though? There are more resumes now that I noticed, like even in Ballet BC, they joined so-and-so studio. Then they went to this ballet thing. They're recognizing the studios now in their resumes, because before they would cut it out. And I'm like, no, they have to recognize the studio training, because that's a lot of these kids are from that training, the versatility that, and in Ballet BC, you know what they love? They love the convention kid because they're versatile. They can do everything.
Right.
You know, where it's not just a ballet person. And you know, so more than half the company is from that world. And when I walked in this last week, 2 weeks ago to visit, I was like, it blew my mind, you know? So that's why I always remember myself, I'm never too good to teach those 47-year-olds or those 8 to 10-year-olds in the convention, because you don't know who is going to be that next person who's going to be dancing for a big company. You know, so that's
our future. That's our future in dance, is that 4 to 7-year-old group, you know? And if we're not giving them people who are going to make them fall in love with dance, we're not going to have a dance in the future, right? Like that, you have to give those 4 and 7-year-olds people like you, people who enjoy the art of dance and love the art of dance and want to pass that along to the next generation. Like I feel very, very strongly about that. Anyone can go in and teach my senior jazz, but I am very particular who teaches my
Yes,
children
but
choreography.
yeah, because it's the foundation. And
Yes.
honestly, you know, the privilege has been really like on like to be able to see both sides of it, to be able to see the dance spectrum on both ends of it, not only in the conventional world, studio world, ballet company, ballet conservatory, modern company, like to see the whole spectrum and to be able to jump in and out of those. I think that if I stayed in one genre, I think I might get bored, honestly.
Mm.
Think the way my personality is, I love seeing it all working together, and where things are not working together, where things are separated, it informs the way I teach. And because I have that privilege, I mean, I worked my butt off to get here. I just want to like kind of preface that to get to this point, but to have that privilege to be able to see the different facets of the dance world, it's been really, really fun, you know. But we all have one thing in common, and that is our love for the art form. But often, and but also the other thing too is that I wish for me is our love for is also our love for community. But what I would like to see is more interaction between the communities. Like I'd like to see ballet companies go into these conventions or whatever, or that's happening more so than ever. But I feel like there's still a separation because the ballet world just is, you know, they just don't want to. But I said, unfortunately, the way the world is going, you have to kind of mold and mesh because
Yeah.
the dance world is becoming more integrated
Yeah.
commercially and artistically. So
Yeah.
And I can say I'm a decade or so older than you, and I can say that where we are today is far better off than where it was when I was in my early 20s.
Mm.
It was a totally separated
oh my
world,
gosh, yeah.
and the respect wasn't there. But you're right. One of the things that I see today is the kids who grew up in the dance studio or a convention world who now are in all of these companies. So it's going to pull the walls down, and eventually I see us as maybe working together to
Yeah.
create
But
dance.
Mhm.
I want to give credit to you, Ree. I mean, your programs and the way you design them, I think you're a huge contributor to that, those walls falling down. I just want to say that because you know, all these kids are coming from these studios, and I'm sure that studio owners have all been influenced by your methodology and your teaching, what you offer. So your reach is so vast that without even you knowing it, I know that what you've done is help really bridge the gap, but also let the walls crumble so that things can function together. So I just also want to give you a shout out for that because you're
Thank you.
major. You know, I wanted to say, yeah, giving credit where it's due. So
Yeah.
For me, it's all about the passion and what I know dance does for so many. I consider it life changing. I
Yes.
consider it the blood that flows through so many veins that keeps people going. It's a gift.
well,
Always have.
Yeah.
it keeps you young, and as my chiropractor says to me, and any of my therapists that work on my body, because I have to work and take care of my body, still do what I do. What did they say? Motion is lotion. And I'm like, ah. I'm thinking to myself, I'm taking that because he's like, yeah, the more you move it, it keeps you young, the cells activate. And I'm like, I don't even understand the science. I can kind of
Right.
understand it a little bit, you know, with my little sort of engineering brain from decades ago. But basically, they said you keep yourself moving, it keeps you young. It's the best possible Botox without that you could possibly give yourself. Like motion is lotion. I'm like, the thing is, you should just never stop. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not stopping. So I just have to keep going because, you know, the other thing too is I'll see like 55-year-old American gladiators going to the obstacle course. I'm like, I have no excuse, you know, to like not continue what I'm doing because I'm like, if they can do it,
That's
you know,
right.
like then there was this like 90-year-old gymnast or decathlete that they were like featuring in the Olympics. And I'm like, I literally like should stop like making fun of myself and think I'm too old because I'm not. I
Not.
think I love like still feeling the steps in my body. I can't jump like I used to, but to still feel the turnout, to still feel that a big part of my practice is when I get a chance, I will take with an adult class, an adult ballet class with these 60-year-olds in Santa Fe, and they are divas. I mean, and some of them I'm like, how are you holding your leg like this and releve? And the teacher who's older than me, whenever I show up, she always makes the class harder. And I'm like, or whatever, because, like she's just excited that I'm there. But I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, why are you making it hard? And I look at her holding her leg in releve, letting go of the bar. And she's, way older than me. And I'm like, I have no room to complain here. I have no right to complain here. And they inspire me so much because they're in there. It's part of their fitness. It's part of keeping them young. It feeds their soul. They're feeling their feet and their legs, and they're in there every single day. And I see them work really hard, and there's just nothing but joy in their faces and joy in their bodies, and it's just really, really inspiring. So, I do that when I'm there. I take class when I can, when I have time. I have to be careful not to injure myself, because when you feel good, all of a sudden you're like, I used to be able to do that. So you try it and you break an ankle. So I think floor work is fun, but it's been, my physical therapy, and I have been working on my pelvic floor to get stronger.
I love it.
So
another coffee talk that went a little bit over time, but was worth every minute.
That means it was good. That means it was good.
This was good. We need to do it again. And I want you to come and work with my teachers. I'm going to call you.
I would be so humbled and so honored.
I want it. I think I love who you are and what you stand for, and I want to meet you face to face. Absolutely. Oh, there's Tessa. Tessa's the one who told me how awesome you are. Okay, Tessa, there you are. I love
There you go. Hi, Tessa. Oh, I love her so much. Oh my goodness, she is
same here.
Amazing.
Okay, yeah. We are going to see each other again, Francisco.
Yes, let's do it. Okay. Mwah. Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
We'll see you in a couple weeks. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.